Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. For decades, we've pretty much treated cognitive decline as just an inevitable tax on a long life, right? Like, it's just something that happens. But recent discoveries in neuroscience are completely flipping that script. It turns out the aging brain is way more adaptable and, frankly, far more resilient than we ever dared to imagine.
Seriously, think about this for a second. How do some 80-year-olds walk around with the memory of a 50-year-old? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But scientists have actually identified this rare, just incredible group of people known as SuperAgers. These are individuals well over the age of 80 who still possess the cognitive abilities, specifically the razor-sharp memory recall of people decades younger. They are literally rewriting what we thought was biologically possible for the human mind.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this frames our whole medical mystery. We're essentially looking at two totally divergent paths of human biology. On one hand, you have the typical aging brain, which slowly becomes vulnerable to structural damage and cognitive decline. But on the other hand, the superager's brain does something miraculous. It either actively resists this neurodegenerative damage, or it completely withstands it without losing any function. So to understand how we can all become a bit more like these superagers, we first have to understand what exactly they're fighting off.
So, let's get into Section 1, the mystery of superagers and rewriting the aging brain.
Moving right along to Section 2, inside the Alzheimer's brain and our prime suspects.
To solve this mystery of resilience, we first need to hunt down the biological culprits that actually rob us of our memories. And our first major suspect, amyloid plaques. Think of these as toxic debris. Basically, they're harmful buildups of protein fragments that accumulate in the spaces between your nerve cells. In a normal, healthy brain, these fragments just get broken down and flushed away. But in an Alzheimer's brain, they clump together into these hard, insoluble plaques. They literally clog up the brain's communication pathways, like a massive traffic jam, suffocating the neurons and driving the disease forward.
Which brings us to suspect number 2, tau tangles. Now, if amyloid plaques are the debris blocking the roads outside the cells, tau tangles are the total collapse of the infrastructure inside the cells. These are twisted fibers of protein that build up within the neurons themselves, causing massive cellular failure. But, and this is where the science gets absolutely wild, researchers recently discovered these hidden brain cells called tanocytes. These specialized, kind of obscure little cells appear to actively help stop this dangerous tau buildup. It's like we have this built-in defense mechanism we didn't even know existed.
Here's the crucial point, though. Alzheimer's damage doesn't just happen overnight. It begins quietly, years, sometimes even decades before actual memory loss becomes obvious. And the early warning signs are surprisingly stealthy. We're talking about silent, unnoticed drops in brain blood flow and oxygen use. There's also this active loss of smell, which happens because the immune cells in your brain actually start destroying smell-related nerve fibers as they react to those abnormal proteins we just talked about. And perhaps the most disturbing part? The brain begins scrambling memories while you're resting, so all this damage is happening quietly, right under the surface.
All right, Section 3, the science of brain resilience, or the neuroresilience paradigm. So instead of just obsessing over the pathology of the disease, the plaques and the tangles, institutions like the Stanford Knight Initiative are pioneering something completely different. They're studying resilience. They're asking, how do we actually construct a brain that simply refuses to break down? Just imagine vibrant, glowing neural circuitry mapping out the firing activity of a healthy brain. This concept is called the neural exposome. It's basically the sum total of how our environment, our lifestyle, and our biology all interact to keep those vital connections alive. This is exactly what the brain of a superager looks like. They maintain these vibrant, highway-like connections well into their 90s, completely bypassing the normal roadblocks of aging.
But wait, what if you didn't win the genetic lottery? What if you aren't naturally a superager? Well, the good news is scientists are figuring out how to manufacture that resilience. There was this massive cellular breakthrough recently where researchers found a way to boost a specific protein called SOX9. And by bumping up this protein, they activated the brain's astrocytes, which are these star-shaped support cells. Actually, it's more like they supercharged them, effectively turning ordinary brain cells into powerful plaque-clearing machines. We are literally learning how to trigger the brain to clean itself.
And speaking of cleaning itself, researchers recently discovered a literal hidden drain inside the human head. I know, it sounds crazy, but using cutting-edge MRI scans, they caught a previously unknown waste removal pathway right in the middle of action. They watched fluid flowing slowly along the middle meningeal artery, acting as this natural drainage system that flushes out the exact toxic debris that causes cognitive failure. So, our brains have a built-in plumbing system for taking out the trash, and keeping those pipes flowing is absolutely critical for longevity.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, rewiring for cognitive longevity and the actionable clues you can use.
Okay, we've talked a lot about biology and cellular breakthroughs, but what does this all mean for you today? How can you actually mimic the biology of a superager using your daily habits? Well, I want you to burn this number into your memory, 38%. A comprehensive recent study revealed that a lifetime of mental stimulation, things like reading, writing, and learning complex new skills, can cut your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by a staggering 38%. The brain is quite literally a use-it-or-lose-it organ. Building up those cognitive reserves through constant learning acts like a physical shield against neurodegeneration.
So what's our actual SuperAger blueprint? Based directly on the latest neuroscience, it comes down to 3 steps. Step 1, reduce visceral fat. A massive 16-year MRI study proved that reducing deep abdominal fat protects the physical volume of your hippocampus, that's your brain's memory center, for decades to come. Step 2, prioritize sleep. As we touched on earlier, bad sleep is exactly when memories get scrambled and those toxic plaques build up. Deep sleep is when that hidden drain in your head does its very best work. And step 3, seek mental stimulation to build those cognitive reserves and lower your risk by that massive 38%.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the brain-first future, a true paradigm shift.
For the longest time, we focused heavily on cardiovascular health or muscular strength as the ultimate markers of aging well, but that focus is rapidly shifting upwards. There's this fantastic quote from the research literature that says, "A brain-first approach to health prioritizes neurological status as the primary determinant of overall physical wellness." Really think about that. Extending a healthy, vibrant lifespan requires us to actively rewire our ancient brains to survive and thrive in a modern world. Basically, if you protect the central control system, the rest of the body follows suit.
So I want to leave you with one final provocative question. What will you do today to protect your brain for tomorrow? Whether it's picking up a new language, going for a brisk walk to boost that blood flow, or just making sure you get a solid 8 hours of sleep to let your hidden brain drain do its thing, you have the tools right now to build your own neuroresilience. The science is incredibly clear. Cognitive decline isn't just a waiting game anymore. It's a condition we can actively fight. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and start building your SuperAger brain.